Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. This is the recording for our lecture entitled Audience Analysis, and this is for the group of students who take this course, Public Speaking, CPB 1022. So the topic today is about how we want to analyze our audience while we are having our public speaking session with them. Kalau menebang si pohon jati, papan di Jawa dibelah-belah. Kalaulah hidup, tidak berbudi, bagai pokok tidak berbuah. Biarkan orang bertingkat besar, kita bertingkat berkilik-kilik. Biarkan orang bercakap kasar, kita bercakap baik-baik. So the essence of these two pantuns is also related to the capability of how we can analyze our audience for us to give our public speaking session so that it will tailor with the needs of our audience. It will tailor with the differences that the audience have, and we can deliver our speech nicely and accordingly. So these are among the learning outcomes for this particular topic. Student at the end of the class should be able to, number one, understand why a public speaker must have what we call as the audience-centeredness. Number two, at the end of the class, I hope that student could be able to know the importance of understanding the psychology of audience. Objective number three, I hope that all of you know what is audience demographic analysis. And last but not least, you know how to adapt your speech with the audience. Lain padang, lain belalang, lain orang, lain pandang. So this kind of Malay proverbs reflecting the differences of our audience, which we need to take a good care of, and we need to suit whatever we have in our minds, in our speech, with the needs or with the expectations of our audience. Furthermore, the expectations among the audience are different in terms of one's expectation with another. For example, the differences could be based on different kind of age, different kind of gender, different kind of culture, or maybe different kind of the country where the audience origin from. For example, if we look at this graphic of this elephant, we can ask our audience, how many legs does this elephant have? And you will surprisingly know that your audience will give different type of answers. Some of them might logically say this elephant has 4 legs. Some of them will say this elephant has more than 4 legs, maybe 5, 6, 7 or 8. So all of the audience have one type of graphic. They can view one type of clue, which is the graphic of this elephant, but they will give different type of perspectives based on their understanding or based on their perceptions. So that's why we need to learn what is actually audience-centeredness. Among the discussions of scholars in public speaking or communication field, they had interpreted audience-centeredness as keeping the audience foremost in mind at every step of speech preparation and also presentation. So it means that we keep in our mind, we keep focusing on our audience in the preparation stage and also while we are delivering our speech. Being audience-centered does not involve compromising your beliefs to get a favorable response, nor does it mean using devious, unethical tactics to achieve your goal. You as a public speaker can remain true to yourself and speak ethically while adapting your message to the goals, adapting your message to the values and attitudes of your different audience. According to scholars, to be audience-centered, you need to keep several questions in mind when you work on your speeches. For example, ask yourselves, to whom am I speaking? Ask yourselves, what do I want them to know, to believe, or to do as a result of my speech? And ask yourself, what is the most effective way of composing and presenting my speech to accomplish my aims? So the answer to these questions will influence every decision you make along the way, along the session of your public speaking. It might start from the stage of selecting a topic, or when you determining a specific purpose, settling on your main points and supporting materials, organizing the message, and finally delivering the speech. For example, if in front of you are those little kids with their own attitudes, with their own immature behavior and so on. So what can you expect from them? And what you want from them in terms of the message that you try to share with them. So you need to associate all the strategies, all the possible ways of tackling their attention towards your public speaking session. And then you need to have a very subtle kind of ways on how to make sure that they will enjoy your speech session. Same goes to public. You cannot expect all of your spectators or your audience will have the same degree of understanding about what you delivered to them in your speech. You cannot expect that all of your audience will justify the same outcomes based on what they listened to you. Why? Because they came from different cultures. They came from different geographical backgrounds. They came from maybe different kind of religions and so on. So based on their experience and their own knowledge, so they might have different kind of perceptions, different kind of expectations, and different kind of reflections towards whatever you had shared with them. What about this old generation audience? Kita tahu, we know that this kind of generation, orang-orang tua ni, these old folks, they have vast experience, they have vast knowledge. And what you can expect from them if they are among your audience, and what you can do to tailor your aims with their aims in your speech. So that's why you need to have the audience-centeredness skill. So because of this, I want to share with you the conception of the psychology of audiences. So what do you do when you listen to a speech? So let us ask ourselves, if we are the spectators, if we are the audiences, so what do we do when we listen to a speech? Sometimes we pay close attention, but at the other times, maybe you let your thoughts wander. Maybe you are physically there, but your mind is elsewhere. So people may be compelled to attend a speech, tapi kan, no one can make them listen. Seriously. It happened to my lectures, my previous lectures, my previous speech and so on. We may ask a group of people to sit in front of us, but it is hard for us to 100% ask them to keep their minds, keep their attention with us 100%. Memang susah. Okay, so that's why we need to learn about the psychology of audiences. So macam-macam mana pun, okay, macam mana susah pun, alright, according to scholars, we as the speakers must make the audience choose to pay attention. Okay, kita bukan paksa, we are not forcing them to listen or to pay attention, but we have the option to guide them or ask them psychologically to pay attention towards whatever we share with them in our speech. Even when people do pay attention, they don't necessarily process our message exactly like what we intend them to process. For example, we have maybe 5 information. We deliver one by one after another, but it doesn't mean that they look like they are paying attention, they are comprehending everything. Tak. So ini disebabkan oleh auditory perception is always selective. Auditory perception ni adalah whatever we listen from a speaker does not mean that we are listening with hearts and minds. Sometimes dia macam masuk telinga kanan, keluar telinga kiri kan. So itu namanya auditory perception jugalah. Alright. Okay, so every speech contains 2 messages. The one sent by the speaker, that's number 1. And the second message is the one received by the listener. Whatever we throw through our verbal message ni doesn't mean that it is been interpreted exactly what we thought. Mungkin ada fahaman lain lah daripada apa yang kita sampaikan. And then listeners are more likely to be interested in any information that has the element of proximity. Proximity here means a relationship to their personal space. For example, if we talk about something, okay, a person who always involved in maybe sports, they will interpret whatever we share with them with their experience, their knowledge about sports. People with the capability or experience of arts, maybe if we deliver something, they might channel his or her understanding towards the artistic things. Okay, so same goes to any other kind of persons with their own personal space. So what a speaker says is filtered. Is filtered through a listener's frame of reference. Apa tu? It is the sum of her or his needs, his or her interest, expectations, knowledge and also experience. So as a result, we listen and respond to speeches not as they are, okay, but as we are. And then audience usually want to hear about things that are meaningful to them. Why? Because people are egocentric. They pay closest attention to messages which affect their own values, affect their own beliefs, and also their own well-being. Listeners approach speeches with one question uppermost in their minds. Apa dia? Why is this important to me? Whatever we deliver to a group of audience, they will always ask themselves, penting ke benda ni kat saya? Penting ke untuk aku dengar perkara-perkara yang disampaikan ni dalam hidup aku? Is this important to me? Is this important to my life and anything that I will do after this? So at least that's one of the most important questions that the listeners or the audience will ask themselves when they listen to our speech. Alright, and then we also need to know what is called as demographic audience analysis. Demographic audience analysis is always been one of the points lah, ataupun one of the weapons by a speaker, by a public speaker, in order to win, alright, the hearts and minds of the audience lah. So audience analysis that focuses on demographic factors such as age, gender, religion, sexual orientation, racial ethnicity or cultural background. Okay, so that's what we call as audience analysis. So this analysis consists of two steps. Okay, we have two steps in audience analysis. Number one, the first step, identifying the general demographic features of our audience. Okay, we identify the general demographic background of our audience. And then, for example, we have a glance. Before we start our speech, maybe we stand in front of our audience, and then we have a glance. We look from behind to front, from left to right. Okay, maybe in terms of how many female audience are there in front of us. How many maybe old audience, old age audience than the younger ones, contohnya, and any other kind of background lah, maybe cultural background, ethnicity, nationalities, and so on. And then after we identify those general demographic features, number two, we gauge, kita kaitkan, we make it interrelated in terms of the importance of those features, those different kind of features to a particular speaking situation. We try to make sure that we can capture those differences by delivering a single kind of speaking strategy lah. Okay, while demographic audience analysis can be a useful tool in understanding our audience, like all other tools, it can also be used improperly. So when analyzing demographic information about our audience, it is actually essential that we try our best to avoid stereotyping. Apa itu stereotyping? Okay, it involves creating an oversimplified image of a particular group of people, usually by assuming that all members of the group are alike. Itu yang dipanggil sebagai stereotype. Okay, we usually assume, we think that all members of a particular group must be the same. Semua akan sama. Contohnya macam if we think that those who come from Johor, so asal nama Johor je, asal Johorian saja, ni semua mesti jenis orang yang suka makan tempe sebab Jawa. Itu stereotype. Oh, kalau dari Sabah, ni mesti semua orang yang dari Sabah ni pernah naik Gunung Kinabalu. Itu stereotype. Okay? Kalau dari Terengganu, ni semua mesti suka makan keropok lekor. Dari Kelantan, oh, ni semua mesti suka makan budu. That is what we call as stereotyping lah. Another kind of stereotyping is we always associated something with a particular group. For example, if it is based on gender kan. Kalau gender je, perempuan mesti pink. If males, they will always like blue. Not necessarily. Itu namanya stereotyping. And then everything related to males mesti berkait dengan benda-benda pertukangan kan, apa suka main game, lepas tu males like to have sports like football, bowling, they like to have car and so on. So yang perempuan pula suka makan, suka warna pink, suka tengok movie, suka pakai high heels, suka makan manis-manisan, fikir pasal anak. Lelaki tak fikir pasal anak kan. So those are the things lah. Ini nama dia stereotype. So as a good public speaker, we must make sure that we avoid having this kind of thing, which is stereotyping towards our audiences lah. Alright. Okay, so untuk itu, that's why some of the scholars, okay, in this particular field explain ataupun elaborated what we call as situational audience analysis. So audience analysis that focuses on situational factors such as the size of the audience, the physical setting for the speech, and then disposition of the audience towards the topic, disposition of the audience toward the speaker, and also disposition of the audience toward the occasion. Okay, so by having this situational audience analysis, it will help us to avoid any negative things such as biasness, stereotyping and so on. And additionally, they will help us to tailor our contents with the size of the audience, the physical setting, okay, the maybe facilities that we have to deliver our speech in terms of the teaching aids ataupun speaking aids kan. Ada PowerPoint-nya, ada mungkin kalau perlukan whiteboard, we have the whiteboard and so on. And also all the disposition of the audience towards the topic, ourselves as the speaker, and also the occasion. Kalau occasion itu adalah motivational talk, so they are ready psychologically, mentally, physically to listen to a motivational talk. Kalau ini adalah mungkin religious talk, okay, they will get themselves ready for religious talk lah. Alright. Okay, and then we also need to know how we want to adapt to our audience. So by having the knowledge of relevancy in terms of what we think it is important in our speech and what is important or make the audience interested with the information. So that's what we call as the overlapping stage lah. Dan that particular overlapping stage, we call it as the relevancy. Ataupun what's relevant to us as a public speaker and what's relevant to our audience as the audience lah, okay, in terms of the information. So this is the adapting to the audience skills lah that we need to know. So audience adaptation is the process of tailoring our speeches information to the needs, to the interests, and also expectations of our audiences. Okay, and the adapting to the audience process starts, okay, not only during the speech but also before the speech is delivered. Okay, so that when we are having the capability of doing the adaptation, so it means that our preparation is good. And then insyaAllah the session that we are going to handle for that particular public speaking session will also be as what we expected and as what the audience expected. Okay, so for that particular reason, okay, I want you to record a video not more than 1 minute or maybe not more than 2 minutes lah, okay, about tips how can a public speaker successfully handle audience in his or her speech. You might want to look into the tips that you can find in Google's, okay, ataupun you want to maybe refer to any books that you have already with you, okay, it's up to you. So please record, okay, you need to physically record yourselves, you need to physically record yourselves about this particular topic lah, about this particular assignment lah, okay. Tips how can a public speaker handle his or her audience successfully. Alright, so you need to submit it through the platform that I open in your goals system. Alright, so thank you very much. Kita jaga kita mesti menang. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.